Oh, that's right. Welcome to season 7 of Rinkside. This is episode 420. I mean, 42. We're up in high elevation territory. At least I was out in Denver. But Chewie, how are you doing?
Things are going pretty good over here. I am not celebrating our 420th episode minus the zero because it's Sunday. And pretty cool that we're starting where we're going to try to record on Sundays now so we can get like the episode out before the week starts. Would be kind of cool, like a fresh start to the week.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, I'm just sipping on some blueberry lemonade mixed with,
Ooh.
I don't know, something rhymes with vodka. Um,
Oh.
and yeah, other than that, haven't seen you guys in a while, so I'm gonna show off a couple cards. So obviously I collect a ton of Mantha cards, but I'm collecting another player as well, Peter Kochetkov, the Carolina
Mm.
Hurricanes. He's a goalie.
Oh, nice.
So I don't know, new pack, pretty cool card. The one I really wanted to show off though was this one. It's called the Trilogy Rookie Premier. It's looks like this. It's kind of like clear see-through, but it's actually like a plexiglass. Like it's pretty thick. I
Oh,
don't know if you can
wow.
see it there. Like it's a pretty thick card. It doesn't bend. Like if I try to bend it, it like nothing will happen.
Mm.
So it's pretty sweet. It's like a piece of glass. So
Did you
just
notice that was in the pack when you got it? Like, wouldn't it be a lot thicker?
it was because it's in between a bunch of other cards.
Oh,
So they
right.
just like take out cards of the pack
Uh,
and then like put that one in. So you don't really notice until like you open it and then you like once you look at the cards from the side, you can definitely see it. But other than that, do I have anything else worth showing? Not really. Just a bunch of other cards. But another cool. Actually, I got this little bobblehead, Chewie, Chewie Canadian
oh,
bobblehead.
nice.
Boom, Funko Pop kind of deal. And yeah, I got my eBay store finally set up, so I'm selling a bunch of cards on eBay now.
Oh,
So
nice.
yeah, I've only got a few uploaded. I made a couple sales already, but it's a lot of work to like upload all these cards, and I have so many. So I just
Mm-hmm.
gotta like spend a day and just get it all done. I know the wife and kids are gone for a week in like the end of July, so maybe that's the week that I like just put up all 250 cards that I'm able to put up.
Oh,
But
wow.
yeah, that's everything going on my end. And
Oh, nice.
goals day one starts tomorrow.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely. Uh,
But is there anything going on in your life?
no, I just came back from Denver, the Mile High City. It was a good experience. Um, and I was in Portland earlier. So, been traveling a little bit, but
Okay.
things are going pretty well. I'm pumped for day one of goals. I know that a lot's kind of gone down since we last checked in. Maybe we should turn our attention over to the transactions.
Yeah, so it's going to be weird. We have a ton of transactions to go through, but we'll scroll through a bunch because a lot of them are just signings. So we're going all the way back to, is this May 6th?
That's right, May
Um,
6th.
Actually, if you scroll up a little bit, there's one transaction before that. So this is the first transaction, I guess, officially of season 7, when it reopened in the off season. So this one you saw Pinkman go to Sapporo, who's now their GM and one of their defensemen, and Las Vegas gets Liam Toj from Alaska, and Alaska gets a second. So we'll scroll through a bunch of trades. I'll call them out, and Potty hopefully can find them as I scroll through. But another big one here that I really like to see was Norfolk getting Jamal Jackson from the Jamal Jackson from the Jacksonville Vipers, um, for a season 7 16th overall pick and a conditional pick in season 8, which is, I believe, if Jackson signs long term with Norfolk. So that's a huge piece that's going to help Norfolk this season make their playoff push. Um, Right below that, we got another banger from Las Vegas and Honolulu. Las Vegas trades to Honolulu Billy Busick, Jack Maben, and Jack Brown. And Las Vegas get Colby Wiersema and future considerations and a second. So that's a big big trade. I believe both those players are still pro for Vegas, and Honolulu called up the two affiliates. So all three of those are playing for Honolulu now. Any thoughts on those couple trades before we keep going, Potty?
Billy Busick going for two people and a pick. Seems like Honolulu got a good outcome on this trade.
Yeah, I'd say on the surface, Honolulu definitely won the deal. I know Las Vegas has a lot of cap issues this season, so for them, I mean, I guess it helps them long term wise, keeping some other players. But I believe Busick may have been their number one center, maybe number two. But yeah, he's a huge piece. He played on Team Canada this season and was a big part of that. So it will be interesting. Honolulu definitely got better on that deal.
Mm-hmm.
So if we scroll down, sorry, give me 1 second here. On May 7th, we see another Norfolk trade, another one that I kind of like. They get Devonta Duncan and Striker Jackson for the 11th overall pick. Again, they traded a player that they didn't have for two pro players. So Norfolk realistically traded two picks for three players. I like it because they essentially got three players for the price of nothing at the time. Obviously, those picks became drafted players, but I think veteran players are always going to be more valuable than picks in sim leagues, just the way the progression models are. A small one, Schwarzenegger goes to Columbus from Florence. We'll scroll down here. This was a big one, caused a little bit of controversy in the league, but this one saw Albuquerque receiving General Cornwall and Marco Swift, and Glasgow receiving Leo Cozy, Valentine Constantine, and Timothy Alexander. I think this would have been one of the biggest trades that happened this offseason. It made Glasgow so much better and Albuquerque, but Cornwall ended up retiring for the season due to, he said, an ACL injury. So maybe he'll be back next season, but he ended up retiring and won't be on Albuquerque. Scroll down a little more, a couple picks being traded, a bunch of signings. Small trade with Florence, Neil Rivers. We'll keep scrolling. If we go to May 9th, there's a trade there. Liam Toj goes to Turku, who Turku ends up calling that player up, and they traded a second. So a sweet deal for Turku here, getting a depth player for a second round pick next season. And we'll keep scrolling. A couple trades here with Manitoba on the 10th. They trade a bunch of picks for they receive a bunch of picks and move Brian Lickett to Norfolk. Again, Norfolk had so many picks this season, and they're just getting these good players for them. And Manitoba actually gets a defense back in another deal, Lenny Lyons. So they actually upgraded here, and I'd say came up on top with picks. So great movements for Manitoba. New team in the league. And we had a interesting one. This was a 4-team trade. I don't think we've seen a 4-team trade. I'll try to go through it, but it's kind of confusing. Boston Buccaneers received the RFA rights to Robin Sparkles from Turku. So they had the rights. So it's like a restricted free agent rights to Robin Sparkles. They also received Raymond Scott from Vegas, a bunch of picks. Columbus Chill receives Joe Ironsides and Chase Strasser from Boston. Turku Finns receive Carl Johansson or Johansson, and who they ended up calling up. In Las Vegas received Mario Schwarzenegger and Vincent Constantino. I don't know what you think about that. Like, who do you think won this trade? It's super confusing. It was a bunch of affiliate players and like depth players just moving around. What's your thoughts on that one, Potty?
I think the Finns somehow came out on top. Sometimes less is more, and I think Joe Hansen used to play on the Whales and was a pretty good player.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. I guess the Finns. What did they trade? They traded pretty much a free agent and a conditional second. That's not a bad deal for Turku at all. Good for him. Keep scrolling down. We got Kenny Cage going to Brooklyn for a pick. A couple picks being traded. We can scroll through a bunch of these. Oh, a big one here. On the 15th of May, the Albuquerque Pharaohs receive Victor Fleury from the Las Vegas Sinners for Marco Swift. So Albuquerque ends up flipping Marco for Victor Fleury. Another big name on Las Vegas. Albuquerque, I think, definitely gets better here. Obviously, there was some unhappiness with Marco Swift. He wanted to be on another team. And I mean, Albuquerque made the best of it, getting another player here. And they're now the GM of Albuquerque. So good deal for
Hmm.
Albuquerque. And not very long after, Marco Swift gets moved again this offseason to Tennessee, which is his inevitable home with his brother Ezra. Las Vegas receive Odion Muldoon, John Bond, and Jafari Blackwood. I mean, Marco Swift is the best player in this deal. And I'll say Muldoon would be the second best. And then Vegas gets a couple other depth pieces. So I guess kind of even trade. I think Tennessee does win it with getting a guy like Marco Swift though.
Hmm. Marco's been in the league
Uh,
for a while, right?
I believe since season 2, yeah, him and his
Mm.
brother, and they've always been on the same team. So once again, another season they'll be together. Las Vegas receives Chase Fitzpatrick for a second, a couple picks being traded, more picks being traded. Uh, Sapporo receives Blackwood, and then the drafts happened. There was only 2 trades in the draft. Again, a couple picks being traded. Then there's gonna be a whole bunch of signings, and I think that's pretty much everything of note. We end up going to May 28th, where we have our first um, minors assignments. So a couple of new players to the league. Harris Supreme going to the Montreal Magic. Michael Myers and Tyler Commander going to the Toronto Beasts. Whittle Jiggle going to the Zurich Hawks. Devonta Brown going to the Montreal Magic. And Justin Carr going to the Prague Sabertooths. Another trade came through yesterday. Marco Arnautovic going to the Brooklyn Alpha Dogs affiliate system for a second. So Brooklyn builds up their minor system here. And the last, I guess, the first waivers of season 7, Chicago Pod and Toronto Beasts released their goalies, Robert Cron and Chris Bum. They left the server. And 2 second players actually get created for the goalies. Taz von Wolfswinkel, who is Eaglefoot's second player. He's going to the Chicago Pod as a goalie. And Elijah Nordstrom, I guess maybe the son of Nolan Nordstrom, going to the Toronto Beasts. So both of them will have their pro players for 2 seasons, and they'll have their minor goalies develop. I guess quick question for you: what do you think? I mean, you're in a couple sim leagues. What's your thoughts on people being able to create second players with like a timer on them, like 2 seasons before they have to remove their current one? Do you like it? Do you think it's too confusing? What's your thoughts on that?
I think it's a unique perspective. I'm thinking of what other leagues I know of that have multiple players. Usually there's a rule that you can only have one player at a time. I know in the USFA you can have somebody on defense and offense at the same time.
Right.
So I like it. I think it's a unique twist, and I think it gives people the opportunity before they sunset a player to say, "Hey, I'm going to transition into this, and I want to test drive the car before I buy it." So if they're
Yeah.
if they're like, "Hey, I don't actually want to be a goalie," they could keep their other player and build a new one or something. I imagine.
Yeah. Yeah. It gives them time to develop the player in the minors before they can go pro. The big thing with this one is they can't have 2 pro players.
Hmm.
So if their minors player can't be called up midseason either. So it would have to be a decision made at the beginning of the season if they're retiring their pro player and calling up this one. So that's kind of like helps defend multiple players in the pro system.
Hmm.
But couple last signings. We had a lot of new players join the league after the draft, so that's awesome to see. Velvet Dove going to the Toronto Beasts. Enzo Kakiotor, I'd say Kachiotor,
Hmm.
going to Chicago Pod. Um, Kerry Markkinen going to the Zurich Hawks. John Warden going to the Montreal Magic. Big Lime going to the Toronto Beasts. Dario Valenta going to the Chicago Pod. Tyler Hunt going to the Pittsburgh Lions, and Kenny Bird going to the Prague Sabretooths. That's your transactions so far for season 7.
Wow, what a great overview of what went down in the off season. And shout out to Hera Supreme, who is Supreme's wife or girlfriend or something, but his woman nonetheless has entered the league, and that means that there's only time left for me before mine joins the league as well. And
Awesome.
yeah. So let's see. We've got, from the transactions, we can now move along to our take on the conferences.
Yeah, so we'll talk about the new conferences. Obviously, there's 4 new teams in the league now. After we go through the new conferences and new divisions, we'll talk about the league power rankings that came out. We're recording now, but it hasn't officially come out at this point. But hopefully, once the video comes out, it is announced. But we're having 10 team conferences now. 4 teams join the league. Brooklyn joining the Mr. Hockey Conference, as well as Glasgow, who used to be Redwater. So Redwater relocated with the new owner, Otis Boudreau, or Jess, you might know him as. And the 3 other expansion teams in the Rocket side, Manitoba Ice Hogs, owned by Wicked, and I'll go back to Brooklyn, that's owned by Rock Steel. The Sapporo Steamers, owned by Yodi Logic, and the Columbus Chill, owned by Nate Ironsides. Everyone else is remaining in their conferences, so don't really need to go over that. In the division side of it, this is where it gets interesting. 5 teams per division. Brooklyn joins the Atlantic Division, so they get an expansion team. Sapporo joins the Pacific Division. They get an expansion team. Because Redwater located to Glasgow, Europe doesn't actually get an expansion team in their division. They now have 2 original 6 teams. They have, I believe, 2 season 2 expansion teams and a season 3 expansion team. It's actually a little confusing because Rome used to be Glasgow, and then Glasgow relocated to Rome, and now Glasgow is a separate franchise in Europe. So that's a little bit of a mind. I don't even know. Mind fuck, I guess. And then lastly, the Central Division. I would argue probably one of the weaker divisions this year because they have 2 expansion teams, Columbus and Manitoba, and Albuquerque, North Bay, and Tennessee. What's your thoughts on the divisions this season? Who do you think who do you think rocks their divisions? Who do you think doesn't? I don't know. What do you think of the new divisions?
I think Tennessee's going to win their division. No disrespect to Cam with Albuquerque, but I think this is a good year for Tennessee, and the fact that they've got Columbus in there is going to really help Manitoba, along with the other Brooklyn and Sapporo. I think they'll add to the fodder of the Flames that emerge through competitive play. It certainly helps us to have an expansion team in there. Unfortunately, we did get Rock Steel's team, so that's going to be a bit of a challenge in the Atlantic. But overall, I think that this adds an element of competition, to this. So how many teams make the playoffs per division?
Yeah, great question. So the playoff divisional formats, the number 1 seed in each division will get a first round bye this year. So coming first in your division is very impactful now. You get the first round bye, and then it goes over the conferences. It'll be the top 4 in each conference after that. That equals 12. We've expanded to 12 playoff teams, so it's the top 4 in each conference. So you can see like 4 teams in one division and 1 in another make it, depending on how things turn out. Yeah, number 1 seed is very important. After that, you just got to be better than everyone else in your conference.
Well, there it goes. So you got a little bit of an opportunity to check into first place, but if not, you always get some second options in winning your or placing in your conference. Well, cool.
Yeah, and actually I think it's kind of cool. One other cool thing that I was thinking about, because there's the first round buys, now the teams fighting in the first round will be a lot more competitive, because now you don't have like a team like Las Vegas or like a super team, going against 8 seed or something, and just wiping the floor with them. Now you have between like I guess fifth place and 12th place fighting to get into the second round. I think it just makes it a lot more competitive, which is going to be cool to see.
Yeah, absolutely. Can't wait until the games start playing. But we do have a perspective on the power rankings that we'll pull up right now.
Yeah. So a quick little overview of what we're looking at. On the far left column, you're looking at the league I guess average score of voting. So what happened is each team had a representative create a power ranking, and we're not going to go into each team's specific ranking. We're not going to call anybody out or make anyone feel bad about their picks. We're just going to look at the league average. So Escola put together league averages. That's what your power rankings voted by the teams have come out to. Las Vegas scored number one, Copenhagen number 2, and Florence and Jacksonville tied at 3. And before we go down any further, we're gonna look at the right column, the right little graphic here, and we'll explain what we're looking at. So the first one says highest. That means it's the highest spot someone voted that team. So Las Vegas, someone voted them first. Honolulu, someone voted them 11th. So that was the highest someone voted them. Lowest is the opposite side. So the lowest someone voted Las Vegas was 5th, which is crazy. Like, that just goes to show you that like everyone believes Las Vegas is a top team in this league. And then the variance, so I guess the difference between it. Um, I guess something interesting, Potty, that I don't know how much you'll love. Uh, Miami has the biggest variance of the highest being a voted number 1 and the lowest being a 20th. So looks like someone's doubting your team this season. We'll see what happens. It's all going to show on the ice, eh?
Absolutely. We're used to some perspective at the beginning of the year, but we always, place those perspectives in the box when we shut them down on the ice. So, yeah, there is some hater out there that voted me number 20. I will take credit. I voted myself number 1. But, I think it's cool to see, Jacksonville get some recognition being tied for third place, over Alaska.
Yeah, and we'll get into that. We could
Oh,
talk
my
about
bad.
that. Oh, no, sorry. We're all good. I was gonna say Jacksonville, in my opinion, would be like top 2. I think in my vote they were number 2. They had a very good off season, and you mentioned Alaska. I think a lot of people have Alaska low this season because of their goalie. They have the lowest rated goalie this season, um, in
Hmm.
the league. First year goalie Scott Cooper, 63 overall before his first game. So that's probably why they dropped so low. To be honest, we could see them going even lower, but we'll quickly go through the rankings. I'll group them. Maybe we could talk about them a little bit. So, as I mentioned, the top 5: Las Vegas, Copenhagen, Florence, Jacksonville, Alaska. Is there any up here that you're surprised about, or does that look all pretty standard to you, Potty?
Glasgow, like stands out to me, and that's mostly about of being unfamiliar because I don't think I was here when Jess was previously the owner of the team. Is that right? Or like involved
Yeah,
in the leadership?
I don't remember the
Yeah.
exact timeline of everything.
So there's some chemistry here that I think Glasgow, or however you pronounce it, has, and I think it's interesting to see them, coming up there, and I think that's my perspective on that little quadrant.
Yeah. The next 5, we have San Diego, Glasgow, Rome, and Tennessee. Was it 1, 2, 3, 4,
Mhm.
and then Miami? This one here, again, pretty standard, I think. Rome making a big jump in these standings. They had a hell of an off season, bringing in a bunch of free agents. Um, their team rating is shot up. Tennessee, I think, will have, like you said, one of the best seasons yet. I think they finished first in their division. they're just so stacked on offense this year. So, um, yeah. Any thoughts on this one? I know you have like your team's 10th there. Do you think? I mean, you said you voted yourself first, but do you
Hmm.
think that's kind of where you end up? Do you really think you're going to be top five? Do you think it's up in the air, having a new goalie, a couple rookies on the team? What's your thoughts going into the season?
Yeah, I think the strategy that worked for us last season of winning the division, should as long as we keep our eyes on that, then other things will follow. Having a new goalie, I'm honestly not like a huge expert in the NHL series, having only played from 20, maybe 21, but really starting in 22 to now playing 23. My understanding is that the like efficacy or the impact, I guess, like a goalie makes on a team has, from what I've gathered, has decreased in 23. So having a lower rated goalie,
Yeah.
may not have as much as an impact as it did in goals in previous seasons. But I think it's overall, it's really cool to see how people, you know, picked. I know like when I did this, I had like there's a few teams that stand out. I thought, oh, they're going first, they're going last, and whatnot. But I think it's interesting to see if we split this into like percentiles of you were in the we're basically at the 50th percentile here. How do we
Right.
perform later on? Maybe we could revisit this in the future and see how the community voted towards the reality.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. That would be something cool to look into. Um, yeah, like I feel like when I was voting, the top teams were kind of easy to pick out. The bottom ones, I mean, having expansion this year was you kind of expect them to not perform. Once it got to the middle, I was shuffling. Like I had a team fifth, and then all of a sudden they were dropped to eighth, and I was like, oh no. Then seventh, and then like down to 13th. It was so hard picking. There's going to be so many good teams this year, but we'll look at the next five: Turku, Albuquerque, Boston, Norfolk, and Honolulu. So a bunch of teams that were in the playoff bubble last season. They'll be in the playoff bubble again this season. Turku took a heavy decline here, losing Josh Young, losing a couple big players, replacing them with rookies or younger guys. Albuquerque, yeah, they didn't have a spectacular offseason. They brought in Victor Fleury, which I said was great for them. Other than that, like just kind of replaced a bunch of players with rookies. So um, I think that kind of makes sense for them to be this low. Boston had another great offseason. They brought in the goalie of the year, Chibium Lashinger, and they brought in a bunch of free agents as well. So I know last season they were expected to do better than last. I think this season, really, it's like you got to show up, you got to make the playoffs, or something's like I don't even know what you change. They just got to change something. Norfolk, I think I had them way higher actually than I think this is 13th or 14th. They had a great offseason. Buck Wild is a hell of a coach. I think he can be a candidate for coach of the year if they can make the playoffs. And Honolulu, kind of a weird offseason for them. They brought in good pieces, but then lost a bunch to inactivity, so they have a bunch of rookies. But Bobby proved that at the end of last season that they can compete. So I think you'll see them in the bubble as well. And then yeah, any thoughts on the next five here?
Yeah. So when it comes to Boston, I see that they were voted second highest overall. So shout out to Shaboy for being humble and not voting himself for first. Uh, I think that took character. And they were voted 19th last, so they don't think that they're the worst. But when it comes to Boston, I don't know what to say. Like, you know, I'd have to look at like how many people they sometimes there's just too many cooks in the kitchen for these teams. They've got, all these people providing input, and what you need is like an owner or like a small like oligarchy of people that are basically making these decisions on behalf of everyone. So a totally democratic system may not be effective for performance. But I don't know like what the deal is. I thought Turku also came out a lot lower than I expected. They did pick up LASIK, so I thought, yeah, they lost goalie, but they picked one up, and I think Albuquerque always is kind of like a dice roll. You never know what's going to come out of them. And with Norfolk, I just remember speaking. A number of people talked about how they're going to improve in this season and that they were strong performers. So all power to them, and let the chips fall where they may.
Yeah, exactly. And you brought it back to that highest lowest. We can definitely look at that too. Again, I kind of skipped over it. A couple interesting ones. Florence and Jacksonville, highest number 2, lowest 9 and 13. So pretty decent variance there. Alaska, someone voted them 1. Maybe Krieg, maybe someone that didn't realize they just picked up the lowest rated goalie in the league. Um, San Diego kind of like mid 5 to 11. So I feel like the smaller the variance, I feel like everyone's kind of pinpointed that team to like that's where you're at. Glasgow 1 and 16, like another big variance. Rome 4 and 14. Um, pretty big. Tennessee, that's where the variance gets small again. 6 and 14. I can see them fitting in right there. Like Miami, they'll definitely be in between first and 20th place. So Turku 6th and 14th again, pretty like that makes sense. Albuquerque 7-17. I don't think they go that low all the way to 17th, and I don't think Boston gets to 17th either. Or sorry, 19th, and Honolulu to 19th. But yeah, I mean, it's all pretty good looking there. The last 5 teams is your North Bay Mallards, and then your 4 expansion teams, Manitoba, Brooklyn, Columbus, and Sapporo, respectively. And no one had them past the top 10. They had Manitoba 10th, but no one below that. So interesting there. In terms of expansion, I mean, who do you think is the best expansion team this season, and who do you think is maybe the most rebuilding expansion team this season?
Post rebuilding. I like I was like double checking who the coaches were. So we got Yodi on Sapporo, um, and all these people have been on the show. I think we had Wicked on there. Um, we have
Steele
Rocket
from Brooklyn,
Steel.
and then Nate from Columbus.
From I think in like everybody that's come on, I appreciate it. I think that um, some of the things that really struck me were Wicked with his background in sports management. Seems like he'd be a good leader in being able to set up an organization. He's got a director of coaching, head scout, strength and conditioning. Some of those are sounds like vanity titles, but and they already have a retired number. So I think like they stand to outperform their expectations.
Yep.
With Rock Steel, I think that just having a really effective understanding of lines and strategies, being able to execute that in the game, you can take whatever your team is and be able to maybe not always win, but always compete and keep it interesting. So I think that they're going to go, a little bit higher than this quadrant. Columbus, you know, I don't. I think they're going last, and then
Oh,
Sapporo,
okay.
Sapporo. I think Yodi. He's was new to the league, but one of these individuals that struck me as very intelligent, very put together. So I think that they're definitely not going in last place.
All right, there you go. Yeah, I think it's going to be so close with the expansion teams this season. It's going to be so exciting to see how they perform, and hey, maybe even one of them competes for the playoffs this year.
Yeah, we will just have to see.
So yeah, we've been talking about that a lot. What do we have next on the first episode of season 7?
Absolutely. So I thought, we've reflected on the teams and, the performance of some of the newer teams coming in. Let's reflect a little bit on the career league leaders. And Chewie, I know you've been talking this whole time, so I can try to
Yeah, go
pilot
for it.
this one, but I'd love
Go.
to get your feedback because I know a lot of these people are, OGs in the league and, you know them. But with goals at the top, 143 goals. We got Tom Krieg, followed by Grizzled Bear and Heather Gray, but not to be forgotten in fourth place with 122, Amelia Rose. So working her way up there, and yeah, Scola on here. I don't know if I have to read all of them. Shout out to Hume for getting on this list as well. One of the unsung heroes of the league, and also probably the funniest in Twitch chats. Although Grims does have some clever jokes every now and then. But then we've got. I'll just run through the rest of the list. Adam Banks, Robert Grimes, Leighton Lee. So every person on the goals list has over 100 goals. And when we compare
Yeah.
that to assists, the lowest is 111 with Telemax Scarborough. What do you think of that metric? That, like, the David Leathers coming in at the top with 171 assists and Tom Krieg with 143. I kind of expected there to be more assists than goals, but maybe I don't understand the game well enough.
Yeah. So I maybe you miss said that there's definitely more assists than goals. Um, but because every goal has 1 to 2 players getting an assist, just mathematically, you well, I guess you could have goals unassisted. I guess there's more of a chance to have a goal with 2 players assisting on it than just a single goal.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that's where that comes into play. Um, yeah, I mean, I think that makes sense. A kind of cool thing to look at on the goal side. You mentioned David Hume. I believe he's the only non-original player from the league to be in the top 10 in goals.
Mm.
So that's cool. On the assist side, I don't I don't know it for sure. I think Scurvy and Cooksey are both non-OG players, and I think they may be the only ones. Um, so yeah, cool to see that. You don't have to be an OG to be on these leaderboards, but definitely a lot of Alaska players, a lot of Jacksonville players, and a lot of Copenhagen players. Just seeing as how long these teams have dominated. But we could look at the time on ice. What do you think of that?
There we go. Shout out Doug Britton taking the most time on the ice, but the most well deserved time on ice. What a dominant force he brings. And then Johnny Blades, from Jacksonville, coming in close. I don't know if one's going to be able to overtake the other. Clearly, these are all defensemen. Does this not include goalies on here?
No, it doesn't include goalies on there. Yeah,
But you see a strong distribution of left defensemen, about 40 or 60%. And then you've got on the right side, you have 4 players that are right defensemen. We've got Manitoba, so one of the expansion teams kind of cracking this thing with Bernard Gustafsson. And other than that, some interesting players on the board.
yeah, yeah. That's a huge pickup for Manitoba, getting a guy like Bernard Gustafsson. You've essentially picked up one of the best defense in the league. He can quarterback your power play, your top pairing, and the penalty kill. So that was a huge pickup for them.
Wow. Very well done. And shots on goal leaders. So remember, we have around 140 goals, but the shots, we have Grizzle Bear with 110. So Grizzle Bear has
A
100.
thousand.
Oh yeah, yeah, you're right. 1,010. So that's roughly like 10, 13%, I guess. Maybe a little bit lower. Maybe it's 1.3%. No, that's right. So about a 10%.
13.27% to be
13.
exact.
Excellent. What do you think of that? Is that a pretty good rating?
Yeah, yeah. I think like NHL standards, I think like between 10 and 20 is like good production. Anything below 10, I think, is not great. Krieg has over 15%, so I think that's a very healthy, um, like shooting percent number. I'm kind of curious. I'm trying to like see if there's anyone on the top 10 shots list, not on the goals list. Outlaw Owens, so I guess maybe him. He's on the top 10 shots, but not the goals. So maybe he needs to hit some targets more in practice.
Mm.
Gunny as well. So they're taking the shots. They're not, I guess, getting the results they need.
Well, when we speak about results, we've taken a perspective on 4 categories, but we got another 4 for you. You should see a familiar name up here at the top. From the assist leader, we have points leader David Leathers with 271. And oh, look, all 3 of these are Copenhagen, Grizzle Bear, and Amelia Rose, followed by a block of Alaska players, then a Las Vegas player, an Alaska player, and Outlaw Owens holding it down with 205 in 10th place. So cool to see how the points manifest. And I think a better metric is probably the points per 60, where you can actually see like for the time that they were on the ice, who was serving the best. And there's the top three again: David Leathers, Grizzle Bear, Amelia Rose, all with above a 2.59 or higher, which I think is pretty crazy. That for every game they're scoring 2.5 points.
Yeah, well, 60 minutes played. So if like the
Oh,
forwards
right,
probably
right.
play around 25 minutes. So every couple game, like, yeah. But yeah, every 60 whole minutes is good. A couple interesting ones. Scurvy Dog, fourth on the points per 60, but not on the points leaders. So Scurvy hasn't put like he's also not an original six player, so he has a full less season, but he's producing very well when he's on the ice. Same with Outlaw Owens, he's up there all above 2.5, and David Hume. So David Hume and Scurvy, I'd say probably the top picks of the season 2 draft, and Joey Rab up there as well. So yeah, that those are some cool names to see. And
Yeah.
then now we got some special team stuff. Or I guess if there's anything else you have to talk about on the points per 60.
Oh no, just wanted to say Jacksonville does have four out of those players, which is pretty impressive for their roster. But we
Yeah.
can move along to the power play goals. Oni Escola at the top with 30 by a wide margin to Tom Krieg with only 25, and then a close race between Grizzle Bear, Billy Busick, we talked about earlier, and Evan FX, as well as Chester Chess and Robert Grimes that are all within a point or two of each other. So when it comes to the shorthanded goals, we have Brandon Arispe Romero on the expansion team, the Sapporo Steamers, with 5.
Yeah,
What do you
that's crazy.
what do you? Oh, let's not forget about Squibs, who's also tied with 5. What do you think it takes to be a shorthanded goal leader?
Yeah, I don't know. It's so like there's not really like a setting in the strategies to be like play more offensive. I maybe like the formation is how offensive you play. Um I have no clue. Like Amelia, I haven't put Amelia Rose on a single penalty kill line, but I have 3 shorthanded goals. So it's generally the game generally puts like a player in if like they're in the penalty. Like if your penalty killer is in the box, they'll replace it with someone else. So obviously that's what happened. Um, but like I don't know. I guess speed maybe.
Mm,
Like Adam Banks is up there. It's shorthanded. Just the whole penalty kill system is so confused. I don't know. It'd be interesting to figure it out. I'd love to know how to get my players scoring shorthanded goals.
yes,
But that's all the info I got for you.
but if you watching at home have the answer, we'd love to have you on as a guest to talk about it so we could all figure that out. And shout out to Fox Highwind, our first retired player on the list. So
Yep.
all right, and moving on, we've got a couple more for you. Johnny Blade, 656 hits. Aaron Kozak, Terrence Jones, all in the 600 club from some old school teams as well as some newer ones. So this is a good representation. Interesting to see Frank Castle, 416. Has he? Do you recall if Frank's been in the league for a while or?
I think since the beginning,
Hmm,
or at least season 2. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, there we go.
Brett Solberg also the only forward on that list.
Oh, great call.
Yeah,
Yeah.
interesting.
When it comes to the penalty minutes, we have a leader of Truck Ackles on Las Vegas, followed by Doug himself with 151 points or minutes in the box. That's quite some time. Um, Squibs himself, we've got I guess, the second forward on that list. You would kind of, oh no, I see there's a few centers on there. So looks like it's pretty evenly distributed between, offensive and defensive players. But yeah, that's quite some time to think about their decisions. And,
Yeah.
you know, who knows how it
I wonder
changes
how
things.
much it hurts these teams. You have Las Vegas with now 3 players on that list. They just brought in Kozak. Florence with 2 players. Alaska with only 1. Rome with 2. Do you think that has a big negative effect on the team having like your top, like Doug Britton. He's like with their best defense, and he's spending a lot of time in the box. And now they have Kozak, right?
Yeah, I think I don't know like what really attributes to getting a penalty. Could it be like aggression? Is that a component of it, or is it more of on line
I think more of a
strategies,
discipline, like
discipline?
discipline. Yeah, like stick checking, body checking,
Yeah.
fight. Well, fighting's on there too. Like if you get in a fight, that's 5 minutes.
Hmm.
So I don't think, yeah, I don't think fights are that beneficial to teams anymore. I don't know. Seeing the endurance boost is good, but does it really help the team? Does the team always score after? You know, you're losing a good player. It's be interesting to see if we can somehow figure something like that out.
Mm. Some advanced statistics. We're going to need probably some machine learning to figure that. But people that have figured out the game, saves leaders, Coco Raccoon with 5,660 saves last go, and Bagalupi with coming in with 5,172, and Chris McBride. All these players have 5,000 or more, and Chris McBride is the goalie for Brooklyn.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I was actually looking at the goalie stuff earlier. I think some of the stats are missing for a few of the goalies. That's why they're showing some with zero. So maybe we'll skip over the goalies for now and go back to it because this isn't a true representation. Probably should have mentioned that before. So we'll skip the goalies here. I guess Chris McBride, 61 shutouts. That's accurate. So congrats to him on that. But puck possession, what's your thoughts on this, Potty?
Puck possession. So I'm trying to differentiate between, like I know that time on ice versus puck possession, but I'm thinking maybe there's something in this where there's like a ratio for how much time are you on the ice, how much time do you have possession of the puck, and then maybe some
Yeah.
sort of boosting stat for, the points you score or, I don't
Yeah.
know, the hits you make
You
in
know,
that.
actually, that now that you mentioned that, I was thinking of another sweet attribute that would be cool to if the game would bring in is time on attack. Or no, if is there a time on attack? There is a time on attack. Yeah, so there's also time on attack and time on defense stats. Maybe that could be even like put in there somewhere. Except
Mm-hmm.
those are team stats. So you'd kind of have to like take all your players' puck possession time versus their time on ice, and then compare that to the team's time on attack, and like what percent like Grizzle Bear is on attack compared to on defense. I don't know. Maybe I'm just talking
No,
nonsense now, but
I'm totally with you. It's like basically looking at for the amount of opportunity you had, were you, uh, for the time you were in possession, were you more of an offensively centric player or a defensive? So
yeah,
I think that's interesting, and there might be a solution if you look at hits or points or something if you wanted to split those. But um,
yeah. I guess the only issue is the time on attack is team wide.
yeah,
So you don't actually know if it's the player that's on the attack. We just know if they have possession.
right.
So maybe hmm. Anyways, yeah, Grizzle Bear up there with the highest puck possession time. All forwards on that list. Are you
Yes.
surprised by that?
I was, to be honest, I thought that there would be some sort of outlier with the defenseman, but my guess is for those elite ones that get the most time on the ice, they probably have relatively, um, maybe they have like their shot pass biases are more skewed towards passing, so they get rid of the
Mm,
puck quicker.
right.
Um, but the name Gunny comes up. This was one that wasn't on kind of the list earlier. In Jake Molyneux, I don't believe I saw. Uh, but it's when it comes to puck possession time, I think it's an interesting metric. But it's like, how do you make the most of it? What does it mean to the scoreboard or to the
Yeah.
chemistry on the team? So,
Well, I
uh,
guess if your team has the puck, the other team's not scoring. I don't know.
well, sometimes you do put it into your own net, but those
That's fair enough. Yeah, yeah. Fair enough.
yeah, those are not too often. One of my favorites though is this plus minus best in seeing
Yeah.
Leathers at the top with this 187, only 4 points ahead of Amelia Rose, and of course Grizzle Bear, another Copenhagen, and we got Fulton Reed all with over 150 six plus minus. This is like one of my favorite metrics because it showcases the impact that you're actually making to the overall team. Is in
Yeah.
times, are people scoring on you, or are you preventing that from happening? Are you scoring on the other team? Is there some balance? I think we could get a little bit deeper into this to understand the skew of, where they power play goals, or when did the plus minuses occur. But I think they they don't occur on penalty kill, right? If you're on penalty kill, then you don't get a -1.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes. I
But
don't
you
think you get a plus for a power play goal either.
oh oh
I
interesting.
think. I don't I actually don't I someone may have to confirm that. Because if you don't get a minus for being on the penalty kill, then why would the other team get a plus
Mm.
for being on the power play, right? I don't know. But yeah, one kind of I'm going to like stroke Copenhagen off a little bit. Before Gustafsson got taken by Manitoba, we had our full first line and pairing in the top 5. So I loved looking at that. Now it's, I mean, I don't think a lot of teams are crying that now I only have 4 players up there, but I thought it was kind of cool that we had our top pairing and top line all in the top 5. So, yeah, I don't know. Just wanted to mention that.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty sweet. So that was like your line one. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. Like
Nice.
line 1 since almost season 1. Well, Grizzle Bear showed up a little later, but yeah, thought that was cool.
Yeah. I think we'll have to come back to the goalie stats, give them a proper look with the
Yep.
all the correct info. But I think that wraps up um, our career stats and a bit of the show today. We're almost at an hour. This was a really fun conversation, Chewie. How are you looking forward to the upcoming season?
Yeah, it's I'm super excited for game 1. We didn't uh really talk about the matchups this week, but I think anything that happens is going to be exciting. The first couple weeks are always the most exciting for goals. Which teams kind of get an early lead, which teams, may struggle a little bit. I guess we'll find out. Any other thoughts, Buddy?
No, just looking forward to obviously the games, but the season 7 of Rinkside, working with you and Supreme and the rest of the community that makes this show possible. We do have a goal for this season. We want to get to 150 subscribers. So if you're still watching this and you haven't subscribed, then take this opportunity to do so. But we'll keep bringing in this weekly content. We're going to be getting it out to you early so you can reflect on it before your upcoming week. And with that being said, till the next one, this is Rinkside signing you out.